All right, you were probably expecting this one today. We're going to be talking about fleet compositions. Now, the last few days we've been going over the individual fleet designs, or at least ship designs, and they are definitely interesting. And let's take a look at how they contextualize to the actual game. However, there is something that we need to talk about first, and I get a lot of questions on this particular subject, and that is, what is the perfect ratio for my fleet? How many corvettes do I need per destroyer? How many destroyers do I need per cruiser? How many cruisers do I need per battleship? In my personal opinion, there is no perfect ratio. There is only reacting to your surroundings. Sometimes you just need more corvettes. Sometimes you need more cruisers. Sometimes you need more of the other types. And these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, and also learning about, hopefully, a little bit as well. In addition, a lot of the ship designs that I've shown so far are very much situational. You always want to be on your feet. Like the ship of the line cruiser, the Swiss knife approach may not always be suitable in the right situation. And sure, I've got people saying, hey, this is a counter to this ship. Of course. There will always be counters to ships. However, we're going to be talking about situations that are more generalized, but also situations that are more specific. So let's go and dive in to Stellaris and take a look at some of the stages within the game and what kind of ship fleet layout you should probably be striving for. So, here we are. It's the early game. It's not the earliest of earliest games. Obviously, that starts in 2200 when you only have 3 corvettes. And you don't really have anything to work with at that point in time. However, it's really important that we kind of understand what's going on within the context of the game and how to properly approach different situations. So now we are 16 years into the start of the game. It's fairly straightforward, and in all honesty, there's not a lot of stuff to see. Right now we have a fleet of 12 corvettes. We are almost capped out on our naval capacity, and at the start of the game, before we have destroyers, you generally want to aim to cap out that naval capacity and try to get your flexibility up. Obviously, at the start of the game, you kind of want to aim for something a little bit more flexible when it comes to the overall field. So let's take a look, for instance, at some of these aliens, these neighbors that are next to us, so that we can properly assess what our situation is. Because there is no such thing as a perfect fleet composition. So let's take a look at these guys next door to us. They got 19 corvettes. At this moment, you don't know this. You should go out of your way trying to figure out what do the people or the Xenos around you have, and then actively counter them. You can move a ship very close to their fleet, or maybe even play the game a little bit and ask for sensor data, but as soon as you have access to stuff, you will know what they have. In this particular scenario, these aliens are using small nuclear missiles. Now, this is a problem at the start of the game because, well, nuclear missiles, or these standard missiles, are difficult to counter, but it does give you an incentive on which direction you should work yourself into. So basically this means you should be moving towards destroyers and point defense. You don't want to attack at this point yet. You want to make sure that your fleet is keeping up with them in terms of fleet power, and that your overall, let me quickly tag in here, your overall relative power is generally equivalent. In this particular case, it's set to superior, which is definitely not a good thing. You want to keep this equivalent as much as you can, and once you know what you want to do with those guys around you, then you can start forming your fleet and kind of go into the general direction that you want to go into in order to basically conquer the ever-loving crap out of them. So let's go back to our observe and actually take a look at what else is around us. There's this other alien empire down here. They have a fleet of 524 fleet power. Let's take a look. It's only 12 corvettes. They are a lot weaker, so why would this be the case? Well, it's probably has something to do with their ethics, but that's a whole different case. Let's say we take a look at their fleet. Also missiles. So it turns out that the two neighboring empires between us are mostly focusing on missiles. What does this mean? It means that we need to aim for the magical world that is destroyers and point defense as fast as you can, because the AI will not really move away from their initial weapons technology at the start of the game. So in this particular case, your fleet will probably consist of mostly destroyers in about 10 to 20 years from now, ready to take on the aliens around you and take their worlds. Because their destroyers, well, with point defense, pretty much impossible to stop. So we arrive at the end of the start of the game, where we have finally managed to get into a position where we can start attacking our neighbors. Now, let's take a look at our neighbors right now, their military power, etc. As you can see, they are currently running a bunch of destroyers. It's also, by the way, 46 years into the game. And as you can see, they are still all running missiles. In this particular case, you're just thinking by yourself, well, fair enough, they're all still running missiles. How am I going to deal with this? What sort of fleet should I be using here? Well, this is actually fairly straightforward. Let's take a look at our armada that we have set up for this, as well as our ship designs. Even though it's being outclassed in terms of pure fleet power due to the lack of these slots not being basically any sort of weapons, the point defense systems here basically nullify any advantage that the enemy has over us at this moment in time. Which basically means, even though their general strength may be 800 points more, we will still outclass them because our point defense will negate any sort of enemy engagement. Sure, there's a lot of them. They've got 35 corvettes, 32 destroyers. We've got 10 corvettes, 27 destroyers. However, our point defense should be able to take that out pretty easily. And this is all about information. You want to counter the enemy properly. In addition, we can take a look at what sort of weapons they are running. They are running medium deflectors. Fair enough. What is countering medium deflectors in this particular case? Well, we have small railguns, which does additional damage to shields. Again, there is no perfect solution to every single situation, unless you just pile 500 battleships onto the field with tachyon cannons. That will solve any problem very quickly. However, it's all about adapting to the situation and trying to figure out what is going on. So at this point in the game, sure, we got 76 naval capacity is perfectly fine. 4 planets, a little bit low for about 50 years in, but still, we are actively building fleets that are directly countering our enemy. And that's kind of the direction you want to go in. Sure, you can build the ships that I put onto the videos the other day, but it's more of a guideline. Try to figure out what the enemy has, counter accordingly. So yeah, end of the start of the game. Basically, this is what things will generally look like. So now we arrive in the middle of the game. We have basically established ourselves as a general empire, and we're trying to assess the situation that is around us. If you're playing tall, this is a time for politics. If you're playing wide, this is time for constant war all over the shop. Now, the first thing we need to know is what is going to be our next target. Now, the most logical one in this particular case would be this particular empire over here. And finally enough, we have gotten ourselves a an agreement with them that allows us to basically see whatever they have, their ship-wise. Or actually, it's the Hazar entity, my apologies. Anyway, we know what these guys have because we can see their fleet. Once again, intelligence is everything. So let's take a look at their ship designs. They have 21 cruisers, which is a significant amount. They got 22 destroyers, and they have 22 corvettes. So the AI does this thing where it tries to flatten out its type of fleets quite a lot. So they'll generally have like 20 battleships, 20 cruisers, 20 destroyers, 20 corvettes, etc., etc. So the real trick here is how to counter all of this together. Now you couldn't, once again, just throw the hammer at them and just throw 20,000 cruisers their way, or battleships for that matter, and just let the tachyon lances do all the work. Or you could play it smart and actively counter whatever they have on the field. So in this particular case, it's a mixture of kinetic and missile weapons, at least with their cruiser designs. What this means is that once again, we need to put destroyers into our fleet. Thankfully, we have got all of this stuff as I quickly need to take a look here. There we go, the destroyer screen. Now we have a bunch of these in our fleet. I believe it's about 13 of them. And once again, more point defense and a lot of focus on kinetic weapons to take down enemy shield and enemy armor. Flexibility is the key. And in this particular case, I have gone with the large railguns because the range and the additional damage will allow for the destroyers that take on the cruisers directly, putting a lot of damage on the field and taking them down. So overall, this is a fairly decent setup, but you will also notice that I have got a fairly large amount of corvettes still on the field. It's still relatively early in the game. I still have a lot of holdovers from my old fleets, and I'm starting to phase them out a little bit and trying to introduce new stuff on towards the field. This does not mean that the ships become obsolete instantly. For instance, a fairly standard flexible anti-shield setup right here. So plus 33% shield damage is really nice to knock down enemy shields. But the autocannons, in addition, make sure that additional damage is being brought on the field as well. There's no pluses or minuses onto the small autocannons. If you go for the medians and the larges, they do some special stuff. But we've fleshed things out with the following. The first torpedo ships are starting to come on towards the field. So we got space torpedoes, high damage, designed to take out cruisers. Now, this is a bit of a risky situation. I generally don't think it's a particularly smart idea to do this at this stage because a lot of the enemy fleets will still be running a lot of point defense, especially these let's take a look here. I think the destroyers do. Yeah, so they got 22 destroyers with point defense on them. Now what you could also do here is do something crazy, and like you have 22 of these small corvettes, and you're running into issues with point defense. So what can we do there? Well, we, for instance, can go to our ship design here, and if we have cluster missiles or any sort of whirlwind missiles, we can put those in towards the medium slots and try to overwhelm point defense, and trying to make sure that the enemy focuses on them rather than on the torpedoes, so we can knock out the enemy cruisers more efficiently. And this is all very stuff. Don't look at this Alliance fleet. It's Jesus Christ. Yeah, ignores 30% of armor and minus 20% shield damage. That's definitely what we want right now. Thanks, Federation setup, whoever built these. Yeah, don't let the AI build Federation ships. They're not particularly good at it. So yeah, this is a general design. For the somewhat mid game, you got about 10,000 fleet power or something like that. It's not particularly impressive, but next up, it's time to go for the end game. So here we are. It is the end game. The Imperial Armada is kind of set itself up. It's 64,000 fleet power. It's kind of the start of the end game. At the end game, the fleets get completely out of control, and don't be surprised to run into any sort of ships and fleet designs that are well into the hundreds of thousands. Like even a million is not really out of the question with that. So let's take a look at these fleet designs and what we have here and what they're specifically built to counter. So this fleet in itself is very interestingly designed. Let's take a look at what we got. So first of all, ignore this thing. It's a dreadnought. It's just being picked up. It's still nice to have, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of anti-armor and as well as anti-shield weapons on here, and if you get it late enough, you can get your jump drive on top of that. Very, very nice stuff, and makes a nice quote-unquote flagship until Titans join the game. So let's go all the way to the bottom. Let's take a look at our torpedo boat design. Extremely straightforward. Support torpedo ships. Do we want to have a ratio here? Not really. It depends on what you're countering. But this fleet is basically set up to design to counter any sort of enemy that can pop up anywhere that we don't have eyes on right now. So what we have is we have high damage towards shields as well as the torpedoes. So this is very much a anti-shield setup. Then we have our destroyers. Full-on flak on this one. This one is completely set up for what should we go with? Strike craft as well as missiles. Missiles is still a thing at the end game, but attack craft are becoming more and more important to counter. You don't need too many of them because they will fill the sky with flak, and in addition to that, you have your cruisers that, in my particular case, I like to put additional flak on those. So the destroyers become additional screens. Now what you can do is you can overbuild your destroyers, build a ton of them, and basically remove all the necessity of having these flaks and strike craft on your cruisers. But it also means that you're going to need to move your strike craft to your battleships, and in this particular case, the role they take is the following. This is a standard this is a small carrier. Yeah, this is an attack carrier, advanced bomber wing, a lot of flak once again. In all honesty, when it comes to this particular fleet, I should probably go back a little bit and swap this stuff out because it's not really all that important anymore. But this battleships come in two flavors: semi-carrier and super heavy damage dealing, which in this particular case is just full kinetic artillery and giga cannon. So what does that even do? It means long range engagement of the enemy at all times. This is a cruiser killer. It will move extremely quickly and basically sit at the back of the battlefield and rain down enemy fire. Basically, this entire fleet is designed to take down any strike craft that come near you. So when do you kind of want this sort of fleet? Well, whenever you're fighting a fallen empire that relies on a lot of strike craft, to say the least. In 1.9, there's a lot more AI using strike craft and bombers, which means that you do need to put a little bit more point defense on the field. But overall, this is a fairly decent setup when it comes to your end game, so to speak, fleet. A lot of cruisers, a lot of battleships as well, and supplemented with a couple of destroyers and corvettes. The destroyers and the corvettes are actually fairly likely to survive, especially in the end game where a lot of the AI brings quite a lot of capitals onto the field, which means that you can get a lot of reuse out of them, which is rather nice. As you can also notice from this episode so far, I do not like to run pure single type ship fleets. There are some people that swear by it. They just want to do nothing but bring 500 battleships on the field, 500 cruisers, whatnot. Sure, go right ahead. Have fun. Like, I'm not a person to judge. However, I personally prefer a nice mixed fleet that can counter situations quite nicely. Of course, if you are focusing down onto a particular enemy, for instance, let's take a look here if we can actually find anything. Oh, we're actually at a war. We've got some mycelium carriers over here. Yeah, this is just a hodgepodge of autocomplete right here. A lot of shield damage on here, a lot of armor damage as well. Any sort of a fleet like ours can easily engage this. Why? Because there is just no point. Oh, there's a little bit of point defense here. But the strike craft will take out these destroyers quite quickly. And these corvettes, also using torpedo corvettes, and they got neutron torpedoes on them, which means that they will be intercepted quite quick. Not be intercepted at all, because energy torpedoes are instant hit weapons, better known as hit scan. But yeah, once again, I'm not actually 100% sure if this video helps you when it comes to setting up the quote-unquote perfect fleet. There is no quote-unquote perfect fleet. Every single fleet needs to be re-evaluated at almost every single stage of the game. What do you need it for? What do you want to counter? Who are you going to use it against? Who are you going to use it to defend against? How can you supplement your current setup to counter the enemy properly? Do I need anti-shields? Do I need anti-armor? Do I want to focus on energy weapons? Does the enemy have point defense? No. Good. Then we can put more whirlwind missiles on everything. These are all concepts that you need to keep in mind because, like I said, there is no perfect fleet composition. There is no perfect fleet ratio, in my opinion. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. I know that people were expecting oh, here's 200 cruisers in a fleet, and it will look awesome. Sure, it will look awesome. Is it practical? Not necessarily, because I don't know what you're going to be fighting. Is this a decent fleet as a peacetime fleet? Sure. It will work fine. It's 125 years into the game, which is actually kind of early considering this type of fleet, but still. I wish I could help you a little bit more, or at least not shatter your dreams when it comes to the quote-unquote perfect fleet composition. Sure, like I said, build 1,000,000 battleships with 1,000,000 tachyon lances. It'll do the job. But sometimes, all you have, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, sadly, becomes a bit of a problem. And sometimes You want that Swiss Army knife. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was interesting and you can reflect on your fleet building, etc. If you're building tall, try to generalize quite a lot because replacing your fleets is difficult. Playing wide, you can just shit out fleets like crazy. It's not a problem. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and, as always, eat Shudder.